Hi, welcome back to my channel. Um, Hope you're doing good. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the dark side of Nickelodeon. And I kind of want to keep this going. I want to find different topics of doing the dark side of this. I think it's pretty interesting. I personally was a Disney kid. Looking back now, I'm like, why wasn't I more into Nickelodeon? They had some really good shows. You know, iCarly, Zoe 101, Zoe 101, 101. Oh my goodness, there was this one show that freaked me out so much. It was, it was like the two old grandparents and the dog, the cowardly dog. Oh my goodness, what was that? Courage, the Cowardly Dog. Oh, it was on Cartoon Network, never mind. Okay, that was a show that used to freak me out, but that was not on Nickelodeon, apparently it was Cartoon Network. Anyways, I digress. The behind the scenes was not all, you know, rainbows and sunshines, but is it ever when you're talking about Disney and Nickelodeon and these kid shows? Rarely is it like that behind the scenes. So let's go ahead and get into what really happened. And in particular, we're going to be talking about Dan Schneider. Dan Schneider is the genius, the mastermind behind our favorite Nickelodeon shows. And there was a problem with this guy. So, I will first start off with a fact. So, apparently, the logo for Nickelodeon was designed to be distressing. The designer of the Nickelodeon logo intentionally chose bright orange and green because they are international distress colors, so it gives the viewer a bit of panic. Okay, and I guess I kept the kids watching. Basically, from 2008 to 2015, Dan Schneider ran Nickelodeon. So he created iCarly, Victorious, Drake and Josh. I liked Drake and Josh a lot, but something that people are starting to learn about Dan Schneider is much, much darker than the lighthearted sitcoms. In recent years, information came out about how inappropriate and creepy Dan Schneider was around the young stars on the sets of his shows. So, in 2018, Schneider's time at Nickelodeon came to an abrupt end following allegations of verbal abuse, poor treatment of the young actors on his show. This seemingly sudden end had people starting to talk and look into themes of past shows and behind the scenes footage, and they started to notice a pattern of inappropriate behavior on Dan's part. Before the news broke, Dan was not a well-known name in households, but Hollywood knew him as an incredibly powerful producer with the definite ability to make successful shows primarily made up of underage actors, teenagers. The first show on Nickelodeon that he is known to have worked on was All That. On the show, he met Amanda Bynes, who then went on to be the star of his first Nickelodeon production, The Amanda Show. This sparked a common theme throughout his shows, in which he would take actors from one successful show and then give them their own feature. For example, Drake Bell and Josh went from The Amanda Show to Drake and Josh. Then Miranda Cosgrove went from Drake and Josh to iCarly. Jeanette McCurdy went from iCarly to Sam and Cat. People believe messing around and playing on set, and then they got visibly uncomfortable once Dan's presence was noticed. So Ariana Grande was wearing a skirt. The other girl was just wearing like a normal outfit. But basically what we saw was Dan came there and saw them, laughing and playing. They were sitting on the ground and they were kind of lying back, and then once they saw him, like, they both kind of sat up. Ariana adjusted her outfit. The other girl actually helped her adjust her outfit, like her skirt, to pull it down. Not that it was raised up, but just, you can tell it, she just wasn't comfortable, and pulled her hair in front to try to cover herself a little bit. And it seemed that every time Dan was there, or sometimes he would even pull out his own camera and start recording them behind the scenes, and they're like, okay, what's Dan doing? What are you doing with that? What do you, like, we don't know what you're gonna do, or what you're doing filming us, it was just, you can tell it was just kind of awkward and uncomfortable. So basically Ariana was 19 years old at the time and Dan was 46 years old. They seemed to have a closeness with the cast and always walked on a fine line between normal and unnecessary. Included writers, crew members, and even actors who found some scenes on the show to be very uncomfortable and inappropriate for the age group that it was targeting. I will tell you one thing that I saw was, because I think when you're looking at it as a kid, you think it's funny, but now knowing this, it just makes sense. Ariana Grande was like lying on a bed, and like her head was back, and she had to like pour water on her face and act like she couldn't get the water in her mouth, and it just looked uncomfortable. It just looked like, what's the point of this? Due to the nature of the topic and possibly a fear that he could do something to their careers, they didn't really speak out and say anything until they felt comfortable that they weren't the only ones speaking out to say something about this guy. So Jeanette McCurdy, she came out with her book, I'm Glad My Mom Died. She discussed which is Nickelodeon's parent company. The investigation didn't find any evidence of SA, but they did say that many people that he worked with viewed him as verbally abusive, adding that some former colleagues said they found him very controlling, a very difficult showrunner, prone to tantrums and angry emails, and a man with a very, very delicate ego who made some staff members feel as though they were always walking on eggshells. Several people said that they felt uncomfortable when he frequently asked an employee from the costume department for shoulder and neck massages or texted child actors outside of their work hours. On August 22, Zoe 101 star Alexa Nicholas stood outside of Nickelodeon's Burbank headquarters with around 20 protesters, holding a sign saying Nickelodeon did not protect me. I didn't feel protected at Nickelodeon as a child personally, she said in an Instagram live video. She says that I am demanding that Nickelodeon starts protecting children and not the predators. She called out Dan's name, referring to him as the creator of my childhood trauma, and saying that she did not feel safe around him at all. Every time he came on set, her body got extremely tense. Later on in season 2 of her show, she said that Dan and a bunch of executives made her cry in a room alone. She said, I don't think that any child should have to experience anything like that, especially when it's coming from people who are supposed to be looking out for the kids on set. So, I did actually see another video of Dan with Miranda Cosgrove, and it was pretty uncomfortable, pretty cringy. She was talking on camera, like giving a little interview behind the scenes, and he came up and was like, oh, I hope you're not saying this about me. And she was like, he said some kind of a joking thread or something, and she was just like, yeah, no, definitely didn't say anything bad about you, you know. And he had his arm around her shoulder and seemed unwanted, and then he pulled her in for a hug, like forcefully, just like pulled her in for a hug, not even ask her, can I have a hug, not even like, but that's so inappropriate. And she just like kind of walked away after that, but it was clearly uncomfortable. At least he doesn't work at the company anymore, so I'm hoping that for the kids at Nickelodeon today that they are working in much better, you know, environments. Don't know really what he's gotten into lately, but I imagine it has to be a pretty scary situation for everybody involved, depending on this, you know, this one person that you can't speak out and say that you're being treated badly at work, or, you know, the kids going through certain things that can't really stand up for themselves because they're so afraid that, what if I never work in Hollywood again, because it has happened many, many times. And it just seems like Dan, the way that they describe him comes off as he's a narcissist, having to walk on eggshells, two sides to his personality, making you feel like the only person in the room. Yeah, it seemed like a horrible work environment. And you know, when you're at work, just even in everyday life, the last thing you want to do is working around someone that is higher up than you, that has a narcissistic personality that makes you feel tense and stressed in your body, you know. Anyways, hope that you like this video.